Hey everybody, today we're going to do another Delaney request and talk about More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon. This is a very compact book. It's deceiving because it's a paperback, it looks pretty genre-y and pulpy, and in a lot of respects it is, but I see what Delaney really meant that he loves this author, because this was such a tight, compact novel, no fat, but just is able to spread its wings at the same time. And it was really great. So the book is separated into three parts. The first part is like a Marguerite de Sade-esque mansion scene with a girl whose father abuses them and doesn't let them go out and not even recognize their own sexuality. When and also going in tandem with a man who is not all mentally there, but he's not mentally handicapped. He's just like a wild animal and doesn't have any perception of self or a human and can't even use words. And then him and the girl connect, and then the man escapes and he goes to works on a farm, and he actually builds an anti-gravity machine because the truck wouldn't move, so he was able to move stuff. Then it cuts to my favorite portion of the novel, where it's a boy in a psychiatrist's office, and he has no memory, he has amnesia, and then he goes back in his head, and the psychiatrist helps him through psychoanalysis to learn that he is part of a gestalt. He took the place of that guy because that other guy was more an animal. He found a group of 5 people, a baby, two black twins who can teleport, and a young girl, and the baby knows everything, and the young girl's psychic, and they're part of this entity, and he takes the place of that. And as that entity, he's a new species unto himself. And at the end of that psychiatrist visit, he's like, oh, I'm super powerful, I can do anything. And then it goes into the third arc, where the woman who was able to communicate with the baby as part of the gestalt is now trying to escape him, the boy in the psychiatrist office. Now, if that sounded like a lot and sounded kind of dizzying, it is a lot, and that's what's so cool about it, because this novel is only like 180 pages, and it goes through all of that and more than what I mentioned. That was just a brief summary, and the way it goes about it, and it's so condensed and it's so quick, but it's not like there's any moment where you feel like, oh, I need more explanation on this. Oh, I want him to focus on this a lot more. It's just so compact. Like, bam, here's everything, here's more, and everything's relevant, but not in an obtuse way as well. I love the level of obfuscation in the novel. I talk about that with other novels like See Above and Some Below and Everything Under, where I think it's just a really strong talent when the author can obfuscate relationships, obfuscate plot lines and relevancy to the plot, and then bring it in later and have it make perfect sense. So when you're in the psychiatrist's office, it feels like you're reading a totally different novel. You'd like have no idea who this boy is or anything, and then even says, I killed somebody. It's like, oh my god, what's happening? And when you find out he's part of that gestalt relationship and he takes the position of it, then you're cemented strongly back in the novel. And that's a very strong thing Sturgeon is able to do in this novel as well. And then on combination of that, in that quick chapter break, that quick end of the chapter wrap up, able with a time skip as well to turn him, now a new main protagonist, into the villain of the story. And on top of that too, this novel challenged my notions of the genre of sci-fi. You know, we always kind of think of sci-fi like some huge advanced technology, and there is with the anti-gravity machine, but that's not really an important plot point. It's only to demonstrate and to show how intelligent and how much better the Gestalt is than average humans as well. But I would firmly classify this in sci-fi because it does something that even a lot of sci-fi stuff with all the technology doesn't do. It very much questions the notion of what it means to be human within the scope of some sort of new evolution or technology that increases our capacity and puts us on a new level of a mental plane that we weren't previously there before. And what I mean by that with this gestalt, because the 5 entities as part as one, they have teleportation, they're pretty much infinite knowledge, they have psychic abilities, they can erase people's memories, they are stronger than us. And then at the end of the novel, the girl introduces there's a military character as well, and there's kind of a love relationship there. And again, he has amnesia, and you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on? It's an interesting thing because then at the end of it, he has to teach the guy ethics. Because he's like, hey, this guy can't learn morality because he is a species unto himself. He's not human. They make comparisons like how goats are to us. We don't give a crap about goats, they're just sheep. And that's how the Gestalt sees us humans. So he can't teach him morality because as a species, there's nobody else to take care of him. Like if we kill another human, we feel bad. We can empathize with that and we can see it within ourselves. If you kill a goat, you know, the farm animals, who cares? So that's how the Gestalt sees us. So like, morality's not going to work. So I have to teach him ethics. and how he has the ability to further his population as well. By him doing what he's doing, he's limiting the scope of himself and of his species, and he's not bringing humanity forward. And this embarrasses him, and it's the way he's able to defeat him. And with that plot element, the idea of morality and versus ethics, and also the idea of species, and if we do encounter a new species, what do they care about us? That was so sci-fi. Even though most of this novel takes place in like rural America, that was one of the most sci-fi concepts I've ever read, and I thought that was an incredibly amazing portion at the end of the novel, and it was just so damn cool. And then at the very end of the novel, it turns out that there is a larger gestalt out there. All of like the famous figures in history, all of them, so like, we had you on this physical plane, so that way you can learn this lesson and get rid of your arrogance. Ethics was what he needed to learn, and then he becomes part of like this primordial consciousness with various famous figures in history. He becomes part of that to help humanity. One of the figures was Henry Ford, and like, where was the ethics on that? That guy did not like Jews, but that's besides the point too. But like, it was just a really amazing ending and very beautiful, and I loved it. And one can say it's like, well, that's just kind of like a weird concept, and like, what does that really matter? But in a lot of ways, there is a real world application to it. Thomas of Aquinas, when he talks about the hypostasis, he talks about how God and Jesus are the same being. That even though it's a son, it's actually just part of the same being, because if it was a son, that would imply a species. And a species would imply that it can be derivative and there can be multiple copies, which would take away from the holiness of God. And if you think of the Jesus like that, if you think of religious figures like that they're a species unto themselves, then it brings up the question of like, okay, what sort of morality do they have towards us again? And again, like Sturgeon would say, that would be through the medium of ethics and the ideology of ethics, and that's where they're able to see us and to bring humanity up higher instead of being domineering over us. I'm not a religious person though, so take that however you will. Another interesting aspect of the novel is that every main character introduced at the new chapter has amnesia. So with all these male characters trying to find themselves in their past memories, I'm not entirely sure what Sturgeon was meant to get at, but it was really just an interesting connection. But also the brilliance of that is that, wait, 3 characters with amnesia trying to reclaim their memories in a 180-page book? That sounds horrible. But it's really not. It's really dressed in different ways, and it doesn't get old. I was pretty surprised. I've had reoccurring things in like much larger novels that bored me, but it wasn't a problem. Also, I can kind of see how Delaney is a very big fan of this novel, because it reminded me of stuff like Babel 17, where it's an oddball cast of characters, kind of outcast, like especially within that time period, like the 2 black girls, the mongoloid baby and whatnot. And I noticed Delaney gravitates to those people in his novels. I made a comment to him. I was like, hey, this reminded me, the Gestalt reminded me a lot of the pilots in Babel 17, where you have the ears, the nose, and the mouth piloting the ship. And he was like, oh, you know what? I might have been an accidental connection. And I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, this is a very compact book. Even if you're not too excited about the themes and stuff I talk about it, at a writer's level, definitely read this book, because it's just a great example of plot structure. And what a damn finely tuned watch this is. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can get it for $1.25 anymore, but it's a pretty cheap book. There's a lot of sources on it, and definitely check it out. More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon.